Having introduced the key features of Why the World series, now we will take a unit walkthrough to see how a unit is structured, how a teacher can approach a task, and make the best out of it with the help of the teacher's book. The unit we will be walking through is taken from Level 3, Unit 4. If you have your teacher's book with you while watching this video, it will be really helpful to see the unit sections and how they are dealt with in the teacher's book. Since your teacher's book is interleaved, you may see the student book on one page while the relevant teaching notes are on the next page. Then let's get started. Each unit opener page presents a clear summary of unit contents in terms of vocabulary and grammar. As seen here, the video content is clearly referenced as well. Before teaching the content presented in the unit, it is ideal to go over this content summary and video referencing so that students can get ready for what they will be learning and seeing within that particular unit. Brainstorming about what they will be learning throughout the unit is a good way to activate learners' schemata and bring their background knowledge into the classroom. Please make sure that you spend enough time to go over these points before starting to teach the content. Once you are done with building unit background, then you may start with the lesson, which is vocabulary in each unit of each level. As one can see from the unit title Curtain Up and the content summary, the unit theme deals with films, and the vocabulary introduced in the first lesson is related to films and TV. The can-do statement presented at the beginning of each lesson gives learners the objective of that lesson, and it is always a good idea to go over these can-do statements before presenting the lesson content. Today's learners would like to know what they are going to do with what they have learned. Well, let's explore this lesson more. There are film posters on the top of the page which require some background knowledge. In order to complete exercise 1, for instance, you and your students should know about these films. Have a quick look at the film posters. The Avengers, Paper Town, Ghost Protocol, Mirror Mirror, and Arctic Tale. Have you seen them all before? What do you know about these films? If you need some information, where can you find it? Searching on the internet is one option, for sure. However, if you have your teacher's book with you, take a look at page 89, where you will see a box called Background Notes. If you don't have it with you, here is the example of that box. As you see, it provides you with brief information about the films displayed in the poster. That is to say, whenever there is a task that requires the teacher to have some background knowledge, this is provided in the teacher's book. You may take a quick look at the other pages of the teacher's book to see where else you can find this background notes box. In each lesson, there is at least one exercise that requires students to work in pairs or groups for real exchange of information and opinions. Moreover, in each vocabulary lesson, learners are provided with a speaking box which presents language that is relevant to the task. Before starting the task, it is a good idea to go through this box and zoom it in to display on the board while students are working on their own dialogue. Giving learners something to refer to is always helpful and encouraging. Now let's look at the next page. If you may remember, there is one page, one lesson structure in Why the World. However, only lesson 1, which is vocabulary, is 2-page spread. Since it is the unit opener, and vocabulary forms the basis of what they will be reading, listening, speaking, and writing about in the other lessons. Vocabulary in Wider World is not only presented as isolated items, but also there is a special focus on collocations, chunks of vocabulary, and word forms in word building, which are very important in high-stake exams. With Wider World, students are encouraged to use their dictionary. They should know how to look up a word in the dictionary, and this is practiced in many of the other exercises. Therefore, before starting to teach through the book, it may be a good idea to work with students to show them how to use a dictionary effectively. You can see an example of it in exercise 7, in which students are required to use a dictionary to study the words. However, it is important to check their understanding of the vocabulary as well. How can you make sure that these words are understood correctly? Please see what is suggested in teaching notes of exercise 7 on page 90. If you don't have your teacher's book with you, here is the teaching notes of this exercise. It already gives you questions to check their understanding of the vocabulary. Please note that each lesson ends with an end use section to offer learners the opportunity to personalize the language and to state their own opinion. Some of these sections are accompanied with a Vox Pop video, while some of them are not. This little video icon here next to Vox Pops clearly shows that this task has a video component with it. As we have talked pretty much all about the vocabulary lesson, let's move on to lesson 2, which is grammar. Lesson 2 and 4 in every unit introduces grammar. And in this particular lesson, it is comparatives and superlatives. As you may see, with grammar lesson in Wider World, the approach is to introduce the target structure is inductive. Here, I would like you to take a moment and think about your grammar teaching experience. How have you been teaching grammar? How often your approach is deductive or inductive? Is there a particular reason why you prefer doing so? Well, as for Wider World, providing the target structure in a meaningful context is very important. This could be a reading text, a listening text, or a video in which learners are exposed to the target structure. In this lesson, it is provided in a short reading text. Now, could you please have a look at the text quickly? What is it about? Can you find 2 examples of comparatives and superlatives? As seen, the title of the text is Curtain Up, which is the title of the unit. Students are exposed to the target structure while they are still exploring more about the unit theme. And therefore, they are asked questions of comprehension first, before dealing with grammar, because comprehension comes first. The next step is to ask learners explore the text further to find some examples of the target structure. Then the ideal way is to guide them with questions to discover the rule themselves. Once you are sure that they have understood the rule, then they can practice it further. As seen in the exercise 4 and 5, it goes from controlled to semi-controlled, and finally an end-use section for a freer practice. Again, you see the video icon, which means there is a Vox Pop video here to engage students more. Should you think that your students need some more practice with the target structure, then refer to the grammar time section at the back of the book, in which you can find further practices for each grammar lesson. There are also photocopyables in the resource pack that allows learners to practice grammar in a more fun way. Some of these resources work better in the classroom since they require pair or group work, as in the example. Therefore, make sure beforehand what resources to use in the classroom and assign as homework. I have mentioned about Vox Pop videos in and use sections of vocabulary and grammar lessons, as you may remember. But what are these Vox Pop videos? How can you use them more effectively in the classroom? Well, Vox Pops are short clips of real people filmed by the BBC on the streets of London, answering questions about their lives and opinions, following the topics and themes of the lesson. The purpose of this type of video is to provide short, manageable chunks of language in a real context, which students can use as a model for their own speech, thus improving their productive accuracy. However, since Vox Pops are authentic and spontaneous speech, they will hear inaccuracies even from native speakers of English. So, be prepared to mention and explain these mistakes to students. Encourage them not to worry about individual words they might not catch, which often happens even between native speakers, but to try to get the gist of the speech. In order to help you better work with these Vox Pop videos in your wider world lessons, an ELT expert, Philip Warwick, and one of our teacher trainers offer you techniques, examples, and tips in this 12-minute video training. Please make yourself available to see the video displayed in this link. You will greatly benefit from it. Okay, let's move on with lesson 3, which is reading and vocabulary. You will realize that in wider world, vocabulary is quite predominant. As well as lesson 1, each receptive skill, reading and listening, is introduced with vocabulary. Before going into the details of this lesson, I would like to take your attention to a point, which is the lead-in phase of each lesson. If you have your teacher's book with you, take a quick look at page 94 and find the lead-in part. If you don't have it with you, here is what we are looking at. Each lesson starts with a review of the previous lesson. Since the previous lesson introduced comparatives and superlatives, lead-in of lesson 3 starts with a review of it. Have a look at all lead-in ideas. They are all fun, creative and collaborative tasks. Please make sure you start a new lesson after you have reviewed the previous one. This will help your learners remember what was taught before and get ready for what they will be learning. Looking at exercise 4, you may realize that there are 3 boxes providing information about 3 people. Learners are expected to read the text, the Hi-Fi Entertainment Guide, and match the people with the best show for them. Now, think about exams like Pearson tests of General English or CAT and PET. There are tasks in reading parts of these exams that ask to match 2 different texts. For instance, people with the activities, places, music, or etc. That is to say, even though it is not explicitly mentioned, skills lessons in wider world offer tasks that get learners familiar with what they will see in the exam, as well as providing them reading comprehension practices in a very carefully scaffolded way. If you think that your students need some more practice of reading and vocabulary, then as well as the relevant workbook page, you are provided with extra photocopyables in your resource pack. As you may remember, I mentioned earlier that lesson 2 and 4 in each unit introduce grammar. In one of the lessons in every unit, a drama video presents the key language of the lesson. In here, the key language is quantifiers, and the drama video's title is How Many Bangles Are You Wearing? The video scripts of drama videos are presented on the page as well. This is to give you the flexibility to choose how you would like to work with the video and the text. Ideally, as suggested in the teaching notes, before teaching off the page, having learners to keep books closed and doing some brainstorming, activating schemata activity is a better way to start. Now, try to find how teacher's book suggests to start this lesson. After the lead-in practice, of course. As shown here, it is suggested to brainstorm about traditional costumes first. Since it requires some cultural information, this culture notes box provides you with some brief information about a Hindu festival. Till exercise 3, your focus is on the video and comprehension, not grammar. As you may remember, comprehension comes first to provide a meaningful context. Please note that for each drama video out of class, colloquial language is presented. Help learners to understand usage of these language items by providing lots of examples in different contexts. They will enjoy using them since it is authentic language. As for introducing and practicing grammar, a similar pattern is followed as discussed earlier in lesson 2. The only difference is that grammar is presented through a reading text, while here it is a video. But since the dialogue script is provided, after the video comprehension activities, you are supposed to use the text to find more about the key language. We have visited 4 lessons so far. Let's pause for a minute and reflect on what lessons we have seen. Please try to remember the unit flow and fill in the blanks. Well, what other skills are remaining? What do you think will come after these lessons? Here it is, Lesson 5, Listening and Vocabulary. As you may remember, it is mentioned earlier that receptive skills are introduced with different sets of vocabulary, and the listening lessons provide learners with tasks that they may see in high-stake exams. Before moving on, I'd like to take your attention on exercise 1, which is always there in almost every lesson, class vote. This is really important for 21st century learning. Why do you think there is a class vote section in every lesson before the content is introduced? Well, first of all, it provides opportunities for group work and personalization, as well as stating opinions, reasoning, and evaluating options are required. Therefore, to make the best out of these class vote sections, make sure to ask lots of follow-up questions that students can evaluate options and give reasons. So, once you are done with the exercise on the student's book page, again, in workbook, you can have further listening practice with the same content, festivals in this example, but different text. With the photocopiable, more vocabulary practice is allowed. Having received the key language in different contexts, now it is time to produce. Here with lesson 6, spoken production is targeted. In order to prepare learners for the spoken production, another drama video is provided as an example. The purpose of this video is to present the target language of the lesson in a way that it is truly engaging and meaningful. When new language is backed up by visual clues and context, such as the location, the action, and the body language, it transforms the learning experience so that language is acquired in a long-term memory rather than short-term memory. This will improve students' receptive fluency. To provide you with more tips and techniques, another 20-minute video training has been prepared showing how to use drama videos in your lessons more effectively. See the link here to reach the video and make sure you have watched it as well. Okay, let's continue with lesson 7. In even number units, English and use lessons are introduced, which focus on vocabulary and structures from the previous 2 units, while odd numbered units contain writing skills work covering a range of genres. In English and use lessons, again, target language is introduced inductively through cartoons, and learners are required to study these cartoons to find the examples of the target language. For more mechanical practices of English in use lessons, you may refer to the relevant workbook page, while more communicative activities are provided in the resource pack. As for the writing lessons, model texts are always provided and genre is studied through them. Once students' awareness is raised about the genre, then exercises to study the structure are presented. With the tips in the writing box, they are given support for written production. The relevant workbook page will give your students further practice opportunities before they produce, as well as the photocopiables in the resource pack. As all the skills and target language items are introduced in the unit, word list and revision sections are included. Revision is followed by self-assessment on the relevant workbook page, where students evaluate their own learning and are shown where to refer to for improvement. With What Can You Remember task, they are given the opportunity to reflect on their learning. If less is remembered and you realize that many of the students could not remember the same things, this may give you a chance to go over these points. Every unit ends with the BBC Culture lesson, which is presented with an intriguing question and a photo as a warm-up. Think about how you would use this question to warm the students up for what they will be learning about. A KWL chart is a great way to start thinking about this question, in which K stands for the question, what do I know? W for what do I want to know? And L for what have I learned? Before students read or watch about that culture topic, let's find out what they already know. So they will write anything they know about celebrations. Then get them ask some intriguing questions. Get them curious about celebrations. They can go as far as possible with what they want to learn about celebrations. Write those questions down as well. Then turn to the text, read the title, narrow their questions down to the festival in London. Get them ask questions for what they want to learn about festivals in London. Having read the text, then they can go back to their questions and see if they can find any answers for them. If they do, have them write these answers in the column L. On the next page, you will see some other comprehension questions, and in Explore More sections, each BBC Culture lesson is accompanied with a BBC Culture video. The purpose of this type of high-quality authentic video is to spark students' imagination and curiosity about the wider world, so that they are enthused to pursue their own interests and continue their English learning independently. To learn more about how to integrate BBC Culture videos in your lessons, please visit the link and click on Using BBC Culture Videos, which is a 12-minute video by Philip Warwick and Michael Brent. So far, we have seen what is in the unit and looked at the ways to integrate the relevant teacher's book, workbook pages, and extra resources. Now, let's see what is in the end meta. The very first component of the end meta is grammar time, an example of which was displayed earlier. For each unit and each grammar lesson, you may find extra practices there. Then it is followed by exam time, which you can find in both student's book and workbook. In student's book, 3 listening and speaking exam time tasks for relevant Cambridge or Pearson tests are included. In the workbook, you will find 3 reading and writing exam time tasks. After exam time pages, you can find 5 clear lessons. If you want to know for what units you can use that particular clear lesson, then refer to the unit opener page. Right under the video reference, you will see a clear reference to the relevant clear page. And lastly, 2 extra culture lessons to explore more about the English-speaking world and allow students to compare aspects of this culture with their own. We have explored a unit of wider world and seen how to integrate the other components into teaching in this part of the video. Please refer to your teacher's book for further questions you have. The introduction part will always help you to understand the course structure better. Remember to visit Wider World website on english.com/widerworld. Easy to remember, isn't it? You can find the GCSE teacher mapping booklets for each level, as well as training videos and webinar recordings. Please watch the next part of this video series to learn more about how to use Active Teach in the classroom.